It somehow comes to the field of that binocular vision, which every primate possesses. It's a feat, little far and high. Why should go that much distance for a single? Is it pick it before someone notices? Don't have time or brain to think. You are starting to climb the tree. Yes, you are climbing. Your long hands and outward pointed knee help to grip the tree firmly. From there, you are leaping to grasp a branch. It's dangerous, but your powerful hamstrings and lengthy curved fingers make it efficient and safe. From there, another branch, then another. Folded hips and legs coincide the center of mass and transfer the body weight from one hand to the other hand perfectly. You're moving smoothly like a pendulum with a shoulder which has the ability to rotate around a 360-degree angle. Actually, you are not going towards it. Instead, it is coming towards you. You picked it. Coming down from the tree, walking some distance to find a shade and settle down. Admiring its unusual size and smell. Then you are having it. It's not just you. Yours, mine, ours. With the last fig we ate, our chapter begins.
The sedentary lifestyle is being blamed for as many deaths as
4% of our elementary schools require daily physical education, a lack of sidewalks, discourages walking.
Sitting linked to breast cancer and colon
We
cancer.
could be raising the first generation to end up with shorter life expectancy.
How shall we search for a last thing? We will search with us once, then along the way for if somewhere we missed it. At last we will encounter someone around us who might know about it. Science does these three. We are searching for us. In 2002, Mitchell Brunet with his team was trying to find the fossils related to human origins at Jurab Desert of Chad. After a long struggle and search by facing the dry heat and sandstorm of desert, a Chad scientist of Mitchell team found out a breakthrough fossil evidence. It was the top half of the skull which didn't come under either human or ape category. Scientific community named it as Tomai, and that new hominid species as Sahelanthropus canadensis. The research conducted to find its age concluded it lived around 7 million years ago. The second possible method to find is searching within ourselves. DNA. There is a common belief that in our body the changes in DNA and protein occur at the same interval along the time. So, by comparing the molecular changes rate between two lineages with referral point, we could identify approximately when a particular change happened. Alan Wilson and colleagues used this molecular clock technique to identify when the human and chimpanzee lineages split happened. At the end, they concluded that the time of last common ancestor was less than 5 million years. This is 2 million years less than the direct fossil evidence found out. Some mammalian phylogenetic studies indicates the flaws in molecular clock technique. They point out several factors as because of them the mutation rate in every species differs. Because of this inaccuracy, for now based on fossil evidence we can conclude that the last common ancestor of chimpanzee and humans lived around 7 million years ago. Stop. What is the correlation between finding our origin and the modern environment? Let me explain. Before that, just answer this question. What might be the adaptation which split chimpanzees and human lineages in different paths? Was it brain or body? I would have heard if it was the brain. For sure, the first adaptation occurred in the postcranial body. How much are we finding it as a normal thing to walk bipedally? But the fact is, we are the only primate walking in this abnormal way. This was the adaptation occurred 7 million years ago which made our path completely different from chimpanzees. Tomai had the signs of these adaptations for bipedality.
Tumai's head on a chimpanzee's body, its eyes would always be pointing downwards. It would have to crane its neck to look forward. But of course, if you put Tumai on a human's neck, because of the orientation of the foramen magnum, its eyes look forward. It has to be a biped.
We have not only these endpoints, but we have literally thousands of fossils in the middle.
They are the one who, as mentioned by White, lived in between our own genus Homo sapiens and Tomai, our distant ancestors. Two important genus among them. Ardi. Ardi lived in a not very dried, emptied or dense humid kind of woodland environment around 4.4 million years ago. Short phalanges, slightly extended midfoot, and wide upper pelvic bone of this indicate its terrestrial bipedality. At the same time, it had adaptations to safe climb the trees like long fingers and hands. Opposed hallux deviated from rest of the phalanges. A big lower pelvic bone favored the attachment of a powerful hamstring muscle, etc. And its dental carbon isotope analysis showed it ate a variety of foods, but 75% to 90% was trees and shrubs like C3 plant-based food. This shows it might be lived in an environment which just started to move towards dryness. Lucy. Lucy species lived before 3.2 million years ago. Though it had still carried some of the adaptations like long hands and fingers to climb the trees, compared to RD, it had more adaptations for an obligate bipedality. For example, big calcaneus bone, well-formed longitudinal foot arch, pointed knee joint towards midline of body, etc. About 80% of its food consists of C4 type plants, tubers, roots and seeds. It leads to the conclusion for a habitat of dry savanna with patchy forest. Stop again. Why do I highlight its bipedality and habitat alone? Let me explain. The world climate towards cold and dryness was creating a gradual shift towards dryness in Africa, which is situated in the equator. Rainforest and woodlands where our distant ancestor like Tomai lived started to turn into arid savanna grassland. The only option remained was to get down from the tree and to gather the hard foods like roots and tubers for survival. To carry the foods which were available rarely in that huge grassland, they needed to release their hands from the primary task of locomotion, and walking bipedally helped them to save energy. At this hard situation, we picked that last fig and came down from the tree. As our hand carried that fig, we started to walk on two legs. A story about our bipedality generally might be like this. But this is not a complete story. African climate was not just gradually dried savanna alone. Because of deviations in orbit of Earth from 6 million years till today, African climate carried a great variation of humid and dry cycles in the 20,000 to 4 lakh years interval. This climate fluctuation superimposed with the overall shift towards dried savanna grassland spread and created an unstable environment for any organism to survive. A species trapped in this kind of environment has only few options. First one, migrating from that place. But as we can't be sure with the stability of the environment and the landscape where we are newly moving to, it is still risky. Second option, getting adapted for the both extremes of the environment. But here the problem is, if the intensity of the extremes get higher, the adaptations may fail for both the extremes. Third option, going extinct without creating a new species. Instead of any one of these, a species with the adaptations for particular extreme will disappear from the timeline. While the fluctuation in African climate reached its peak around 2.6 million years ago, speciation got accelerated. Two genus evolved from Australopithecus before its extinction. First one, genus Paranthropus. It evolved with big jawbone and muscles to grind the hard foods available in savanna grassland, but disappeared when climate fluctuated again. Evolution had tested almost every method to create a sustainable species. At last, it took an abnormal decision. It dropped down a genus from its hands. That genus created stone tools instead of tooth and jaw. Tools help them to spread out throughout the world. A major characteristic of culture is it will feed and grow by itself. It comes out of hands which hold it even without its knowledge. The time passed when humans handled the tools. Tools started to handle humans. After came down from the tree, we walked a long distance. Heat, cold and predators threatened us. We built our own roof and settled in it. After that, we didn't turn back. England in the 1800s, the time when Industrial Revolution had started. As like the people in cities, other organisms were also suffered by the wastages of industries. There was an insect variety called pepper moth dwelled in the pale colored trees. 98% of these moths were in pale color as like the trees they lived, thus camouflaged themselves from the predated bats. But Because of the CO2 gas emitted by the industries, the trees around the factories turned into dark color. Now, dark color became the dominant shade as it prevented them from becoming prey. They started to survive and reproduce within themselves. At 1848 counting, its population was just 2%. But in 1895, they made the population of about 98% of the total moths. This is a common example to explain natural selection. Now, we will compare this incident to our question. The changes like tools usage, hunting, gathering, cultural evolution, agriculture revolution just changed the way our body works. But the Industrial Revolution, which started around 300 years before, transferred human labor by machines. This turned the entire picture upside down. After coming down from the tree, it took around 5 million years for us to stand upright, walk, and run on two legs efficiently. In between, we had transitional species like RD and Lucy with mosaic features as an indication of gradual evolution related to the slowly changing environment. There is no wonder at the genes which accommodated adaptations for 5 million years to walk, and the bodies which tamed for hunting and gathering for 2 million years, struggling to be seated on just 300 years old chairs. But is this the only reason? Life expectancy of a pepper moth is maximum a year. Within 47 generations, an entire population has accepted a huge adaptation. Then, why are we not able to take a single step towards that adaptation? Why doesn't our body adapt for sitting an entire day, for living in an environment without ups and downs, for dust and smoke? Why do we get low back pain, depression, and allergies? The pepper moth didn't evolve with dark color for its comfort. That's an adaptation between life and death. The generation of dark ones which survived among the light-colored moths yesterday only will live today. In a savanna land filled with predators, a broken foot arch is powerful enough to reduce your running efficiency, to make you to run last in your band, to make you a prey, and ultimately to stop the misadapted genes within your generation. This selective pressure which acts on every species is the base of evolution. But now, a back pain or even a cardiac arrest won't stop you from getting a salary and purchasing groceries online. A weak muscle won't stop you from creating your generation and living long. At this kind of environment with relaxed selective pressure, evolution fails. The mismatched genes getting accumulated without an exit point. It creates different kinds of pressure. We are in a trap. We could see people day to day in full air-conditioned cars while going to get fresh air. The environment we created is almost similar to this, except the contradiction. It might be turned into, but we didn't create this for luxury or with ignorance. In a changing environment, without muscle strength or speed, to get the food and avoid to be a food, this was the only option to choose. Our bipedality, enlarged brain, culture were evolved for a reason. So nobody's there to blame. We started this game before reading the rule book. The first rule itself is once we start, we can't finish this game. So, sit comfortably, take a breath. The only option remains before us now is to learn how to play this. Don't know we will become transhumans or genetically modified in an attempt to exceed the body. Evolution is always unpredictable. But the truth we are seeing now, humans could even cross the solar system, but their biological limits are so far than that. Wall-E, the movie which criticized the effects of human uncontrollable activities. In its story plot, people of Earth will fill it with wastages and settle in a space station. There they will live as fat bodies on wheelchair with lack of ability to move. Wall-E may sound like an extreme imagination. Then think this way. What if we record our lifestyle in a video and project it to a man who lived 20,000 years ago? Even for him, our life will be like a Wall-E. A scene in Wall-E. The captain of the station will fall down from his seat and get up by his own effort. The entire crowd seeing this will shout out and celebrate this adventure. Standing up may become an adventure one day. The brains which forgot bodies may start to work for some other brains. Branches which exceed roots may break.
I don't want to survive! I want to live!
Even after we started to walk on the ground, our hands were still holding tree branches. Just after the tool usage, our hands left the tree branch. Evolution made our brain to work along with the body. Even the first life of this world without brain has shown its presence through moving. Brains with restricted movements have explored this galaxy through its wisdom. Knowledge will guide the forgotten action. Bodies will retrieve the trapped brains. Now there is a need to move a little through body, a little through the brain. Within the noise of the world, the starving beat for the last fig has just emerged, not stopped. I hope you liked it. Mostly superficial information gives superficial solutions, so I try to take this into little detail, that's all, with some narrations. Now we have an idea about why did we create our environment and why are we not able to adapt for the current environment. Now the question arises, if we can't stop this, how to play this? And one more question, if the adaptation is the problem, instead of adapting, why can't we remain the same with old body and mind in a modern environment? The question is tough. I have to ask someone nearby. But who is nearby? We are the only one. Wait. We are not alone.